The neon sign outside Rosie's Roadhouse had been flickering for 3 weeks, and nobody had bothered to fix it. The R would flash twice, die, then come back to life with the electric buzz that made the whole word pulse. Rosie's, Rosie's, Rosie's. Inside, the jukebox played old country songs, and the smell of fried food hung thick in the air. It was the kind of place truckers stopped at off Interstate 10 outside of Tucson, Arizona, where the coffee was strong and the pie was homemade, and nobody asked too many questions. Jessica Hartley had been working at Rosie's for 2 years. She was 26, tall and lean with dark hair she kept in a braid down her back. She worked the evening shift, 4 to midnight, 5 days a week. The money wasn't great, but it was steady, and her boss, Hank, was decent enough. He paid on time and didn't hassle her about switching shifts when she needed to take her little brother to doctor's appointments. Their parents had died in a car accident 4 years ago, and Danny was her responsibility now. He was 16, still in high school, and Jessica was determined to get him through it and into college, even if it killed her. The trouble started on a Tuesday night in late October. 3 men came in around 9 o'clock, taking a booth near the back. Jessica noticed them right away because they didn't fit the usual pattern. Not truckers. Their clothes were too clean, too new. Not locals. She knew most of the regulars by name. These men were in their 30s, dressed in expensive casual wear, and they looked at her in a way that made her skin crawl. The one who seemed to be the leader had slicked back hair and a gold watch that caught the light. He smiled at Jessica when she came to take their order, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that said he was assessing her, calculating something she didn't want to know about. "What can I get you?" Jessica asked, keeping her voice professional and neutral. "Well now," the man said, drawing out the words, "what do you recommend, sweetheart?" Jessica hated being called sweetheart by strangers. "The meatloaf's good. So's the chicken fried steak." "I bet you're good too," one of the other men said, and all 3 of them laughed. Jessica's jaw tightened. She'd dealt with inappropriate customers before, came with the territory, but something about these men felt different, felt dangerous. "I'll give you a minute to look at the menu," she said, and walked away before they could respond. She told Hank about them when she went back to the kitchen. He was a big man, former Marine, with gray stubble and kind eyes. "They giving you trouble?" "Nothing I can't handle. Just creepy. You let me know if it gets worse. I'll throw them out." But it didn't get worse. Not exactly. The men ordered food, ate it, paid their bill. The one with the gold watch left a $100 tip on a $40 check. When Jessica picked up the money, she found a note underneath. "You're beautiful. Call me." There was a phone number written in neat block letters. Jessica threw the note in the trash and pocketed the money. She needed it too badly to give it back, but the whole thing left her feeling unsettled. When the men finally left around 10:30, she felt relief wash over her. She finished her shift, cleaned her tables, and counted out her tips. $230, a good night. She split it with the cook and the busboy like she always did, keeping her share for rent and Danny's expenses. At midnight, Jessica clocked out and headed for her car. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few vehicles scattered under the weak overhead lights. Her car was a 15-year-old Toyota that burned oil and had a temperamental starter, but it was hers, and it ran. She was fishing her keys out of her purse when she saw them, the 3 men from earlier. They were leaning against a black SUV parked 2 spaces from her car, and when they saw her, they straightened up. The one with the gold watch smiled that predatory smile again. "Hey there, beautiful," he called out. "We were hoping to catch you." Jessica's heart started hammering. She looked around the parking lot. No one else in sight. The highway was visible in the distance, headlights streaming past, but none of those people could help her. She was alone. "I'm not interested," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. She moved toward her car, keys clutched between her fingers the way the self-defense video had taught her. "Don't be like that," the man said, moving to block her path. "We just want to talk. Maybe take you out for a drink, show you a good time." "I have to go." "My brother's expecting me." "Your brother can wait." The man stepped closer. He smelled like cologne and beer. "Come on, sweetheart. We drove all the way back here for you." The other 2 men had moved too, flanking her, cutting off her escape routes. Jessica felt panic rising in her chest. She thought about screaming, but who would hear? Thought about running, but they'd catch her. Thought about her phone and her purse, but there was no time to call for help. "Leave me alone," she said, louder now. "I'm not interested. Please just let me go to my car." "Or what?" one of the other men said, grinning. "What are you going to do about it?" Jessica was about to scream anyway, to hell with whether anyone would hear, when she heard the sound, low and rumbling, growing louder. Motorcycles, a lot of them. The three men heard it too. They turned, and Jessica saw uncertainty flicker across the leader's face. The sound grew louder, and then they appeared. A convoy of motorcycles, maybe 20 of them, pulling into the parking lot in a tight formation. The bikes were big and loud, their riders dressed in leather and denim, and every single jacket bore the same patch, a winged death's head and the words "Hell's Angels" in bold letters. The motorcycles formed a semicircle around Jessica and the three men, their engines idling, their riders still mounted. The sound was overwhelming, a physical presence that made the air vibrate. Then, as if on some unseen signal, all the engines cut off at once. The silence that followed was somehow louder than the noise had been. One of the riders dismounted. He was tall and broad-shouldered, maybe 50 years old, with long gray hair pulled back in a ponytail and a beard that reached his chest. His leather vest had patches indicating rank, president. He walked slowly toward the group, his boots heavy on the asphalt. "Evening," he said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "We having a problem here?" The man with the gold watch tried to smile, but it came out wrong. "No problem. Just talking to our friend here." "That right?" The biker looked at Jessica. "This man your friend?" Jessica shook her head. "No, sir. I don't know them. They followed me out here after my shift." The biker nodded slowly. He turned back to the three men, and his expression hardened. "So you're not her friends. You're not her family. You're three men cornering a woman alone in a parking lot at midnight. That about sum it up?" "We were just... I don't care what you were just doing." The biker's voice was steel now. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get in your vehicle and you're going to leave. And you're never going to come back here. You're never going to bother this young lady again. You understand me?" The man with the gold watch looked at the circle of motorcycles, at the 20 riders watching him with cold eyes. He was calculating odds, and the odds were not in his favor. "Yeah," he said finally. "We understand." "Good. Now go." The three men moved quickly to their SUV. The one with the gold watch looked back at Jessica once, and whatever he saw in her face, or maybe in the faces of the bikers surrounding her, made him get in the car without another word. The SUV's engine started, and they drove out of the parking lot faster than was probably safe, their taillights disappearing onto the highway. Jessica realized she was shaking. The biker president turned to her, and his expression softened. "You all right, miss?" Yes, thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't..." "Don't think about what would have happened. Think about what did happen. Nothing. You're safe." He glanced at the other riders. "We stop here sometimes for coffee on our way through. Saw those jackasses following you out of the diner. Figured we'd make sure you got to your car okay." "Thank you," Jessica said again. Her voice was shaky and she felt tears threatening. "Thank you so much." "What's your name?" "Jessica. Jessica Hartley. I'm William Chen. Friends call me Bull." He gestured to the other riders. "This is the Tucson chapter of the Hell's Angels. We take care of our own, and we don't stand for predators. Those men won't bother you again." "How can you be sure?" Bull smiled, and it was nothing like the smile the man with the gold watch had given her. This smile was warm and reassuring. "Because they know what happens if they do. Trust me, they won't be back." Jessica nodded. She was still shaking, adrenaline flooding her system. Bull noticed. "You good to drive?" "I think so." "Tell you what, a couple of the brothers will follow you home. Make sure you get there safe. That okay with you?" Jessica felt a wave of relief so intense it almost made her knees buckle. "Yes, thank you." Bull called over two of the riders, a man and a woman both around 40. "This is Carlos and Nina. They'll follow you home. You lead. They'll stay behind you until you're inside. Tomorrow you come back to work. We'll make sure someone's keeping an eye on things." "You don't have to do that." "Yeah, we do." Bull's voice was firm but kind. "That's what we do. We protect people who need protecting. You need protecting right now." Jessica got in her car, hands still trembling as she started the engine. True to Bull's word, Carlos and Nina followed her on their motorcycles, staying close but not intrusive. She drove the 15 minutes to the small house she shared with Danny, and when she pulled into the driveway, they waited until she was at the front door. With her keys out, before they gave a final wave and rode off into the night. Inside, Danny was asleep on the couch, his homework scattered on the coffee table. Jessica locked the door behind her, checked it twice, then went to her room and sat on the bed. She put her face in her hands and let herself cry, from fear, from relief, from gratitude, for strangers who'd appeared at exactly the right moment. She didn't know it yet, but her life had just changed. The Hells Angels had claimed her as someone worth protecting, and that meant something in this world. It meant she wasn't alone anymore. Jessica didn't sleep well that night. She kept jolting awake, imagining she heard the SUV outside, imagining those men at her window. By the time morning came, she was exhausted and jittery. She made breakfast for Danny, who inhaled it while scrolling through his phone, oblivious to what had happened the night before. Jessica didn't tell him. He worried enough about money and their situation without adding this to his plate. She spent the day cleaning the house and trying not to think about work. But as 4 o'clock approached, the time when she needed to leave for her shift, anxiety started climbing her spine. What if those men came back? What if Bull and the others didn't actually return to keep watch? What if she'd imagined the whole thing, the protective promise of strangers on motorcycles? But when she pulled into Rosie's parking lot at 3:45, she saw them. 4 motorcycles parked near the entrance, their riders sitting at a table visible through the diner's front window. Bull was one of them. He saw her pull in and raised a hand in greeting. Jessica walked in, feeling a strange mix of relief and unreality. Bull stood up as she approached. "Afternoon, Jessica. You sleep okay?" "Not really." "Figured." He gestured to the other riders. "This is Tony, Louis, and Diane. They're going to be around for your shift. We'll be here when you start, and we'll be here when you finish. Nobody's going to bother you." Hank appeared from the kitchen, his expression wary but not unfriendly. "Jessica, these folks friends of yours?" "They helped me last night. 3 guys were harassing me in the parking lot after close. The Hells Angels ran them off." Hank's face darkened. "What 3 guys? Why didn't you tell me?" "It just happened. I didn't have time to—" "We handled it," Bull said calmly. "But we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again." "That all right with you?" Hank studied Bull for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Yeah, that's all right. Appreciate you looking out for my employee." He turned to Jessica. "You should have told me. I'd have walked you to your car." "I know. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just be safe." Hank looked at Bull again. "Your money's good here. Order whatever you want." The shift started normally enough. Jessica moved through her routine, taking orders, delivering food, refilling coffee cups. But she was hyper-aware of the table where Bull and the others sat. They ordered coffee and pie, and they stayed there, a quiet presence that made her feel safer than she had in years. Other customers glanced at them occasionally, at the leather and the patches, but nobody said anything. The Hells Angels had a reputation, and most people were smart enough not to test it. Around 7, a different set of bikers showed up. Bull introduced them as the evening crew, 4 more members who would take over the watch. The shifts changed seamlessly, like a military operation. Jessica realized this wasn't just a casual favor. This was organized protection, the kind you only got if someone decided you mattered. At 8, during her dinner break, Bull called her over to the table. "Sit down for a minute." Jessica slid into the booth across from him. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the scars on his knuckles, the history written in his weathered face. This was a man who'd seen things, done things, survived things. "I want you to understand something," Bull said. "What we're doing here, it's not charity. It's not a favor you need to repay. It's what we do. We protect people who can't protect themselves, especially women and kids. That's part of our code." "I don't understand why you're doing this for me. You don't even know me." "Don't need to know you didn't deserve what those jackasses tried to pull. That's enough." Bull leaned back. "But if it makes you feel better, I'll tell you why I take this personal. My sister was attacked in a parking lot 20 years ago. 3 men, just like last night. Nobody was around to help her. She survived, but she was never the same. So when I see the same situation, I make damn sure it ends different. Jessica felt her throat tighten. I'm sorry about your sister. Don't be sorry. Be smart, be careful, and let us help you until this blows over. How long will that be? As long as it takes. Could be a week, could be a month. Depends on whether those punks are stupid enough to come back. Jessica nodded. She wanted to say thank you again, but the words felt inadequate. How did you thank someone for saving you from something that hadn't happened yet but might have? How did you express gratitude for strangers who'd reorganized their lives to protect yours? Bull seemed to read her thoughts. You don't have to say anything. Just do your job. Take care of your brother. Live your life. That's all we want to see. The rest of the shift passed without incident. At midnight, when Jessica clocked out, there were 3 Hells Angels waiting in the parking lot. One of them, a younger guy named Tyler with a friendly smile, approached her. We'll follow you home again, same as last night. You good with that? Yes, thank you. Tyler and 2 others escorted her home, waited until she was inside, then rode away. It became the new routine. Every shift, Jessica arrived to find Hells Angels already at Rosie's. They'd sit and drink coffee and eat pie, and they'd watch. Not in a creepy way, but in a vigilant way, and when her shift ended, someone always followed her home. After 3 days, Hank pulled her aside. Those biker friends of yours are good customers. Don't cause trouble, tip well, and they're keeping you safe. I'm good with them being here. They're not causing you problems. Hell no. Business is actually up. Other customers seem to feel safer with them around. Go figure. Hank smiled. Plus, turns out Bull used to be an electrical contractor. He fixed the neon sign. Thing hasn't worked right since I bought this place, and he had it sorted in 20 minutes. Wouldn't take any money for it. Jessica looked out at the parking lot where the motorcycles sat in a neat row. She was starting to understand something about the Hells Angels, something that the media never seemed to get right. Yes, they were tough. Yes, they had a reputation for violence when necessary. But they also had a code, a sense of honor, and they protected their own. And apparently, they'd decided Jessica was one of their own now. On the 4th night, things changed. Jessica was wiping down tables around 9 when she saw the black SUV pull into the parking lot. Her heart stopped. It was them. The 3 men from that first night. The SUV parked near the entrance, and the man with the gold watch got out. He stood by the vehicle for a moment, looking at the motorcycles, at the Hells Angels visible through the window. Then he started walking toward the diner door. Bull stood up. So did the 3 other angels sitting with him. They moved to intercept, meeting the man at the entrance before he could come inside. Jessica couldn't hear what was being said, but she could see it through the window. Bull stood with his arms crossed, his body language radiating controlled menace. The man with the gold watch was talking, gesturing, trying to explain or justify or negotiate. Bull wasn't moving, wasn't responding, just staring at the man with an expression that could freeze lava. The conversation lasted maybe 3 minutes. Then the man turned and walked quickly back to his SUV. He didn't look at the diner again, didn't try to come inside. He just got in his vehicle and drove away. The Hells Angels watched until the SUV was out of sight, then came back inside. Bull caught Jessica's eye and gave a slight nod. Message received and understood. The man had tested the boundaries and found them solid. He wouldn't be back. Jessica realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly, feeling tension drain from her shoulders. It was over. The threat was done. The men had gotten the message. Jessica Hartley was under protection, and that protection was not to be tested. After her shift, Bull walked her to her car personally. He wanted to apologize, Bull said. Said he'd been drunk that first night, didn't mean anything by it, just wanted to make it right. Do you believe him? Don't matter if I believe him. What matters is he understands that if he or his buddies ever come near you again, there will be consequences. He understands that now. Thank you, Bull. For everything. You don't have to thank me every time you see me. But he smiled when he said it. You're good people, Jessica. That boy of yours is lucky to have you. How do you know about Danny? Did some asking around. Wanted to make sure we understood your situation. Your parents died. You took custody of your brother. You're working your ass off to keep him fed and in school. That's admirable. Jessica felt tears prick her eyes. I'm just doing what needs to be done. That's what heroes say, and heroes are worth protecting. Over the next week, the Hells Angels continued their watch, but the shifts got shorter. Instead of all evening, they'd come for an hour or two. Instead of following her home every night, they'd check in every other night. They were scaling back, confident that the threat had passed, but they didn't disappear entirely. Bull and various other members became regulars at Rosie's, stopping in for coffee and conversation. They asked about Danny, about his school, about what he wanted to do after graduation. When Jessica mentioned he was struggling with math, a biker named Victor, who turned out to have an engineering degree, offered to tutor him. When her car finally gave up the ghost and wouldn't start one morning, Tyler and 2 others showed up with tools and spent 3 hours getting it running again, refusing payment beyond coffee and sandwiches. Jessica began to understand that she hadn't just been protected by the Hells Angels, she'd been adopted by them. They'd decided she and Danny were family, and family meant something to these people. It meant showing up, it meant helping, it meant being there when things got hard. One evening in late November, Bull came in alone and asked if he could talk to her during her break. They sat in a booth in the back, and Bull pulled out an envelope. "What's this?" Jessica asked. "Danny's college fund. We took up a collection. It's not a fortune, but it's $5,000. Should help with applications and expenses when the time comes." Jessica stared at the envelope, then at Bull. "I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. Your brother's bright. Victor says he's got potential if he can get past the math hurdle. Kids like that should go to college. This will help." "But why?" "You've already done so much." "Because you remind me of my sister." Before what happened to her, she had dreams. She was going to be a teacher, but after the attack, she couldn't get past it. The fear ate her up. She never did become a teacher. Never got past what those men did to her. Bull's voice was rough with old grief. "You've got the same situation, the same threat, but you get a different ending. You and your brother, you get to have your dreams. That matters to me." Jessica took the envelope with shaking hands. "How do I repay this?" "You don't. You take that boy of yours and you make sure he gets educated and has a good life. That's all the repayment we need." That night when Jessica got home, she sat Danny down and showed him the envelope. His eyes went wide when he saw the money. "Who gave us this?" "The Hells Angels. The bikers who've been looking out for us." "Why would they do that?" Jessica thought about Bull's sister, about the different ending, about strangers who'd decided that she and Danny mattered. "Because they're good people," she said, "and because good people help each other." Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I want to thank them." "You will. We both will." The next evening, Danny came to the diner after school. Bull was there with Tony and Diane, drinking coffee at their usual table. Jessica brought Danny over and introduced him. "This is my brother, Danny. He wanted to meet you and say thank you." Danny stood up straight, meeting Bull's eyes. "Thank you for protecting my sister. And thank you for the college money. I promise I'll use it well." Bull studied the boy, then held out his hand. "You're welcome, son. You study hard, take care of your sister, and stay out of trouble. That's all we ask." They shook hands, and Jessica saw Danny stand a little taller. It occurred to her that Danny hadn't had many male role models since their father died. Bull and the others were filling that gap, showing him what men were supposed to be: protective, honorable, present. As December arrived, the Hells Angels' presence at Rosie's became less about protection and more about community. They were just regulars now, people Jessica knew and trusted. They brought their families sometimes, wives, girlfriends, children, and the big scary bikers transformed into dads now ordering grilled cheese for their kids and asking for extra napkins. Jessica learned their stories. Victor had been a Marine in Desert Storm. Tyler was a mechanic who rebuilt bikes and mentored troubled kids. Diane was a nurse who worked with domestic violence survivors. Nina ran a pit bull rescue. These weren't criminals or thugs. They were people with jobs and families and lives. They just also happened to ride motorcycles and wear patches that made other people nervous. One Saturday afternoon, Bull came in alone and asked if Jessica had a minute. They sat at the back booth, and he pulled out a photograph. It showed a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile. "That's my sister, Lauren. Took that picture 6 months before she was attacked. She was 24. Your age when it happened." Jessica looked at the photo, at the joy in Lauren's face. Where is she now? She died 10 years ago. Overdose. The attack broke something in her, and she never could put it back together. Tried to numb the pain with drugs and alcohol. It finally killed her. I'm so sorry, Bull. Me too, every day. He took the photo back, handling it carefully. That's why we do what we do. Why we watch out for women like you. Because maybe if someone had been there for Lauren, if someone had protected her, she'd still be here. I can't save her, but I can save other people. I can make sure what happened to her doesn't happen to someone else. You did that. You saved me. Yeah, and that matters, more than you know. Bull looked at her directly. You're going to be okay, Jessica. You and Danny both. You've got us now, and we don't abandon family. I'm not part of your club. Don't have to be. You're part of our community. That's enough. Christmas came, and the Hells Angels threw a party at their clubhouse. They invited Jessica and Danny, along with dozens of other families. There was food and music and presents for the kids. Danny got a new graphing calculator for his math classes and a gift card to a bookstore. Jessica got a leather jacket with a patch sewn on the back. Rosie's Roadhouse. Family. You're part of the extended family now, Bull explained. That jacket means something. Means if you're ever in trouble, anywhere, any Hells Angels who sees it will help you. You're under protection. Jessica put on the jacket and felt its weight, literal and metaphorical. She was part of something now. Not alone anymore. Not just her and Danny against the world. They had people. They had backup. They had family. As winter turned to spring, life settled into a new normal. Jessica kept working at Rosie's, but the job felt different now. Safer. More connected to something larger than just slinging hash and pouring coffee. The Hells Angels were regular fixtures, and other customers got used to seeing them there. The diner's reputation grew. It was the place where everyone was safe, where trouble didn't happen, where the Hells Angels drank their coffee and kept watch. Danny thrived. Victor tutored him twice a week, and his math grades improved dramatically. He started talking about engineering schools, about scholarships, about futures that had seemed impossible a year ago. He also started spending time at the clubhouse, helping with bike maintenance, learning about engines and mechanics. The Angels treated him like a nephew, teaching him skills but also keeping him on the straight path, making sure he understood that school came first and everything else was secondary. In April, Jessica got a phone call. The man with the gold watch had been arrested in Nevada for assault. The victim was another waitress at another roadside diner. She'd pressed charges, and during the investigation, the police had found evidence of other victims, other parking lot encounters, a pattern of predatory behavior. Jessica gave a statement about what had happened to her, and her testimony helped build the case. The man was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Bull came to the diner the day the sentencing was announced. He's gone, he said simply. Can't hurt anybody else now. Because I testified. Because you were brave enough to testify. Because you survived. Because we made sure you had the chance to survive. Jessica felt something shift inside her. The fear she'd been carrying since that October night finally loosened its grip. She was safe. Danny was safe. The predator was in prison. And she had a family of leather-wearing, motorcycle-riding guardian angels who'd made sure she got justice. That summer, the Hells Angels organized a charity run to raise money for women's shelters and assault prevention programs. Over 200 riders participated, and Jessica and Danny rode in the support vehicle, helping with logistics. They raised $17,000, and Bull made sure some of it went to programs that helped women like his sister, women who'd been attacked and needed support to heal. At the end of the run, there was a ceremony. Bull called Jessica up to the front and presented her with a plaque. It read, "In recognition of courage and survival, you remind us why we ride. Tucson Hells Angels." Jessica accepted it with tears in her eyes. "You saved my life," she said into the microphone. "All of you. I don't just mean that night in the parking lot. I mean every day since. You showed me what community means, what family means. You showed my brother that there are good men in the world, men who protect instead of harm. You changed our lives." The crowd of bikers erupted in applause, engines revving in approval. Jessica stood there holding the plaque, feeling the weight of gratitude and belonging, understanding finally what Bull had been trying to tell her all along. She wasn't a victim who needed saving. She was family who'd been threatened, and family protected family. That was the code. That was the way. By the time fall came around again, Jessica had been promoted to shift manager at Rosie's. The pay was better, and she could finally start saving money instead of just surviving. Danny was a senior now, with college applications ready to go out, Victor helping him craft his essays about overcoming adversity and finding unexpected mentors. The Hells Angels still came to Rosie's regularly, but now it was just what it appeared to be. Friends stopping in for coffee and pie, checking on people they cared about, maintaining connections. The crisis had passed, but the relationships remained. Jessica had stopped being someone they protected and become someone they knew, someone they valued, someone whose life was woven into theirs. One October evening, exactly a year after that first terrifying night, Bull came in and sat at the counter. Jessica poured him coffee without asking, knowing how he took it after a year of serving him. "Anniversary," Bull said. "I know. I was thinking about it earlier. You doing okay?" "More than okay." "I'm good, Bull. Really good." "Your brother?" "Applied to 6 schools. Victor thinks he'll get into at least 4. We'll be able to afford it with the money you gave us, plus some scholarships he's applying for." Bull nodded, satisfied. "That's good. That's real good." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Bull said, "My sister would have liked you. You've got her spirit, the person she was before everything went wrong. I wish I could have met her." "Me too. But in a way, helping you and Danny, it's like helping her, like getting a second chance to do right by her." Jessica put her hand over Bull's. "You did right by her by remembering her, by making sure other people don't go through what she did. That matters." "Yeah, it does." That night, when Jessica's shift ended, she walked to her car alone for the first time in a year. The parking lot was well lit now. Hank had upgraded the fixtures after everything happened, and she felt safe. Not because Hell's Angels were watching, though she knew they were somewhere nearby, always keeping a loose eye on things, but because she was stronger now, because she'd survived, because she'd learned that asking for help wasn't weakness, and that accepting protection wasn't surrender. She drove home through the dark desert night, past the places that had once scared her, feeling instead a sense of gratitude for the landscape that held her life. She thought about the randomness of that October night, how different things might have been if the Hells Angels hadn't stopped for coffee at exactly the right moment. But they had, and everything had changed. Danny was home when she arrived, working on calculus homework at the kitchen table. He looked up when she came in. "How was work?" "Good." "Bull came in, wanted to check on you." "Tell him I'm good. Victor says I'm ready for the SAT next month. He's proud of you." "They all are." "I'm proud of us," Danny said. "We did it, Jess. We're going to make it." Jessica sat down across from her brother and smiled. "Yeah, we are." She thought about the envelope with $5,000, about the leather jacket hanging in her closet, about the plaque on her wall. She thought about Bull's sister Lauren and all the women who hadn't gotten the chance to survive and thrive. She thought about the code the Hells Angels lived by, the way they'd decided that protecting people mattered more than reputation or convenience or fear. And she thought about that October night, about 3 predators in a parking lot and 20 motorcycles arriving like cavalry, engines roaring, leather-clad riders forming a wall between her and harm. She thought about the moment when she'd understood that she wasn't alone, that strangers could become family, that the world held more kindness than cruelty if you were lucky enough to find it. Jessica Hartley had been lucky, not in the usual sense. She'd still lost her parents, still raised her brother alone, still worked a hard job for modest pay. But she'd been lucky in the ways that mattered most. She'd been seen, she'd been protected, she'd been claimed as family by people who meant it, who showed up when it counted, who changed the trajectory of her life with simple, profound acts of protection and generosity. In the years that followed, Danny graduated high school with honors and went to engineering school on a combination of scholarships and the fund the Hells Angels had started. He called Jessica every week, told her about his classes and his friends and his plans. He called Bull too, checking in with the man who'd become a surrogate father figure, asking for advice about life and work and how to be a good man. Jessica stayed at Rosie's, eventually becoming assistant manager, and then, when Hank retired, the owner. She kept the place running the way it had always run. Good food, strong coffee, honest service, and she made sure the Hells Angels always had a table, always had a place where they were welcome. She hung photos on the walls, pictures of the club at charity runs, of Bull and his crew drinking coffee at the counter, of the community they'd built together. She met other women who'd been helped by the Hells Angels, other stories of protection and intervention. She learned that what had happened to her wasn't unique. The angels did this kind of thing regularly, quietly, without seeking credit or recognition. They just did it because it needed doing, because they believed that the strong should protect the weak, that predators should be confronted, that women and children deserved to feel safe. Jessica became part of that network, that informal system of protection and support. When she saw someone in trouble, she helped. When she heard about someone being harassed or threatened, she made a phone call, and the angels responded. She paid forward what had been given to her, understanding finally that this was how community worked, not by keeping gifts for yourself, but by passing them along, by multiplying the kindness until it covered everyone. And every October, on the anniversary of that first night, Jessica made sure to thank the people who'd saved her. She didn't do it with words. They'd long ago told her that words weren't necessary. She did it by being present, by showing up to charity runs and fundraisers, by feeding hungry bikers and listening to their stories and treating them with the respect they'd shown her. She did it by living well, by thriving, by proving that their protection had been worth it. Because that was the thing about the Hells Angels, the thing that the media and the movies and the stereotypes never got right. They weren't just tough guys on motorcycles. They were protectors. They were guardians. They were the people who showed up when the world got dark, who stood between the vulnerable and the predators, who made sure that women like Jessica Hartley and like Lauren, Bull's sister, too late to save but never forgotten, got the chance to survive and thrive and live without fear. That was the code. That was the way. And Jessica Hartley, waitress and sister and survivor, carried that code with her every day, written not in patches on leather, but in the way she lived her life, with gratitude, with courage, and with the absolute certainty that she was part of something larger than herself. She was family. She was protected. She was home. The neon sign outside Rosie's Roadhouse no longer flickered. It glowed steady and bright, a beacon in the desert night, welcoming travelers and locals alike. And inside, at the counter, there was always a pot of fresh coffee and a table reserved for friends, for family, for the Hells Angels who'd proven that sometimes, when the world got dangerous, the most unlikely heroes showed up on motorcycles, leather-clad and fierce and absolutely committed to making sure that good people got to stay safe. That was worth everything. That was worth remembering. That was the story Jessica would tell for the rest of her life. How creeps stalked a waitress after her shift, and how the Hells Angels walked in and changed everything.